Hi everyone, this is the movie for Chapter 7, Problem Solve 2. And I'm going to begin, this is the second movie, so I'm going to begin with step number 5. If we take a look at the narrative or the instructions, it says create a query in Design View based on table product and table purchase line. So let's go ahead and just start with that. So we're going to do create query design, and we're going to pick product and purchase line, close that out, and I just like to expand that and bring my grid up. All right, so the fields that we're going to just put onto the grid are category, and then the second is a calculated field named gross sales. So gross sales is calculated by multiplying the cost of the item by a markup of 40% times the quantity of items purchased. So let's go ahead and see if we can do that. So we're going to build a new calculated field. So I'm going to right click, zoom, and I'm going to pull that down so I can see my fields. So the first thing we always want to do is what's the name of this calculated field? It's called gross sales, colon. So then we're going to put quantity, so quantity times cost times 1.4. So what that means is so a markup, that's one of those words that you want to pay attention to, right? Markup means in addition to what it already is, we're increasing it. So when we increase it, we always have to do the 1 point whatever the increase is. If we were doing a markdown, like 40% of the original, then you would just do the 0.4. All right, so if I go ahead and I do OK, and I run it, I've got all of my items and this adjusted, or this gross sales. So that would be cost of the item, what we paid for it, times how many we purchased, and then a 40% markup. So we're going to come back here because that's not a very meaningful report, right? So if we take a look at step 6, it says, hey, group the results by, group the results by category. All right, so in order to do that grouping, remember now we're moving away from a calculated field where we get, you know, that calculation for each record, but we're moving to an aggregate, right, when we're saying group by. So that means we have to come up here and click on totals. And we're going to group by category. And then what do we want to do? Group by and sum gross sales. So right now the category is group by, which is cool. Then we want to come over to group sales and make that a sum. So what's going to end up happen is that for each category, we're going to get that category name once, and then the total of all of those individual fields. So if I run it now, that's what I get. So each of the categories, instead of line, it's the total for that particular category. So let's go back and see if we need that. Okay, so that is gross sales. Oh no, we didn't do the formatting, sorry. Format gross sales as currency. So I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to just right click and go to properties, format, drop down, currency, close. Now if I run it, there it is. Got my nice little dollar signs, commas, 2 decimal places. It looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this as QRY gross sales. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I'm going to look at, so we got, let's see, I did 6 is done, 5 is done, so we're on to step 7. Create a query based on product and purchase line that displays a calculated field named total gross sales that calculates the total gross sales. Okay, that would make sense. Total gross sales is calculated by multiplying the cost of the item times 40 times the quantity. Okay, so that sounds really familiar, right? Did we just not do something very similar? We're going to do that, and we're going to do a little more. So let's go ahead and create, sorry here, hold on. We're going to create a query in Query Design, and the fields that we need are cost, right here, cost and quantity. So those are in product and purchase line. So we're going to add product, add purchase line, and we need them because this calculation that we're going to do, the data is in those tables, right? So here's cost over here and here's quantity. That's why I have to put both on the grid. So we're not bringing anything down, but rather we're going to create a calculated field. So I'm going to right click and zoom on my first empty space, which happens to be the space that the first field in the grid. So let's look at what it's going to be called. The calculated field named total gross sales. So let's do that. Total gross sales, colon. So now we're going to do the same formula we just did, right? So we're going to do, let's see, cost times 1.4, we'll just mix it up a little bit, times quantity. Okay, so if we do that and run it, we get that value for every record in there, right? But look, we're trying to do a total. So what do you think we need to do for that? Look right here, sum total sales. So in order to get that sum, I have to put my total row back on, and we're not grouping by, but rather we're just doing a sum. So now if I run it, I should get one number, and that is the total for all the items. That's the total gross. We need to go to properties and make that a currency. If I run it again, there I get my total. So the last one had by category what was the total. This one is looking at all categories, right? So let's just see if we have everything here. Sum it, format it, save it. That's what we didn't do, so let's save it. Query total gross sales. Yes, I already had it done. So let's go ahead. We've got that. So we have 7 done, 8 done, and now, no, we're on 8, sorry. We're on 8. So now we're going to use those queries we just built. So we're going to create a query in Design View based on gross sales and query total gross sales. So we're going to build it on the one that's got the category and the one that's got the total. So can you think of where this is leading? We're going to look at what percentage each of those categories has out of the total. So we did this in the training. I think we did this in the first problem solve. So it's a really common technique where you have, and it could be salespeople, it could be offices, so what percentage of the whole amount that's being sold or whatever is that particular thing. And so the technique is you do one query that has the categories as a group by, or the office or the salesperson or whatever, and you get a total for that. And then you do a grand total for everything. And then you can use the 2 to figure out what percentage. And that's what we're going to do now. So let's create in Query Design. But this time we're not going to be using a table. We're going to click right over here to Queries. And we want to find gross sales. Query gross sales and total gross sales. Right? So those are our underlying queries. Okay, we're going to display category, gross sales, and then a calculated field named percent of gross sales that shows what percentage of each category's sales contributed to the gross revenue. Okay? So percent of gross sales is calculated by dividing gross sales by total gross sales. So let's go over here. Let me get out of here. And what is the name of this query percent? So we're going to do a calculated field. And it's called PCT of gross sales. And the calculation is we're going to take gross sales. Just make sure you type it. That's why I like to put this below so I can see. Divided by total gross sales. Boom. And that's it, right? So look, calculated by dividing gross sales by total gross sales. Do OK. Let's run it. And I get the railroad ties, right? I get all the pound signs. So let's go back, right click, properties, and make that what? We're going to make that a percentage because this is a percent of gross. So now I'm going to run it. Let's see. Format is percent. It doesn't say anything about decimals. All right. So of our total gross sales, 60% is clothing. So that's a significant amount, right? So you can really see, and then you could take this and make it into like a pie chart or something like that. That would be very useful. Okay, so let's save this as QRY percent of sales. And we're good. I think, so that gives us 8 is done, and 9 is done. And I'm going to stop this movie at this point. All right, thank you.